This is Anagalactic on a Monday, the beginning of a new week according to one calendar. It is the 13th day of October in 2025, and we have been in a synthetic series in science, which necessarily, as we now know, encompasses what we otherwise would call religion. What distinguishes religion from science? Well, in both cases, religion and science, a lot depends on how you define those two enormous fields of human consciousness, you could put it that way. What is science and what is religion? Do they relate at all? Is there anything we can say as rational men to approach the related or seemingly related questions that humans have on the science side and on the religion side? In the case of science, we can easily dispense with that definitional convolution because science, of course, is many things. Can we just say that it's one thing so that we have some explicit definition for that word? Yes, if you're willing to introduce a hierarchical point of view, you can distill science down to just one easy phrase. What is that? Now remember that any way that you go about answering a question of that nature, which is quite abstract, what is science, you do need to introduce your context. Because in science you do have to be explicit. The only aspect of science that can be considered abstract is the relational side, where you're not having explicit measurements, but instead you're observing relationships, which is a geometrical approach. So that is the essential distinguishing characteristic in the broad realm of science that enables us to narrow science down to one explicit phrase. What is it? It is the search for truth. It is the process and methodology of extracting truth, and here's the context, from the cosmos. Now, the usual word for cosmos is universe. What universe means is one cosmos. Cosmos, in its original Greek, using the etymology from the original Greek, cosmos is very strongly related to cosmetic. Cosmetic. How can we rationalize that rather extravagant characteristic that somehow nature is like a girl powdering her face? Well, what it actually means, that is the word cosmos, is arrangement. Arrangement. So that a cosmos is a structure. That's what arrangement means. It means something is arranged. That means it's structured. So the pursuit of science is the extraction of structural information from the cosmos. I prefer the word cosmos to universe, although I, in common with most English-speaking scientists, am most tempted to say universe because that is by far the most common word. You rarely hear the word cosmos, but it is a preferable word from one point of view because universe simply means one verse. What would verse mean? You could actually look that up. That would be from the Latin. Uni is Latin, not Greek. Cosmos is Greek, not that one is to be preferred over the other, but just so we know where these words come from. Cosmos, with a capital C, is the standard word for universe. But the way we use words, it's not completely logical. Universe is by far the most common term. So, either one is fine. But I prefer cosmos because of a convention used in logic where you capitalize the word if you're referring to the top level cosmos, which thereby implies that there are sub-cosmoses. And the way I like to illustrate this very, very good, very, very useful insight, I know this seems picayunish. It seems too detailed. It's not too detailed. This is germane to our issue. In science, you extract from a lot of bins, but you need to be selective what you're trying to relate in order to present your propositional logic for whatever you're trying to establish. In this case, that religion and science are the same thing. And I am the man who discovered that incredible insight. I don't mind giving myself a pat on the back because I'm at the phase of my scientific career where I must be heard now. And that means I need to start getting belligerent. According to my own disposition, I want to fight. I'm being ignored, then you are going to have trouble. If I stay, there will be double. I know. If I go, there will be trouble. If I stay, there will be double. That's one of the most threatening things I ever heard. Well, if you're going to be belligerent and threatening, it had better the fuck be for a decisive reason where it becomes life and death. Because once you start pushing those buttons where, hey, I'm here now, listen to me, you're going to encounter violence. You are not to be heard. There are very stringent laws regarding trolls. And anybody who comes into science, who wants to introduce something, this is equally true in religion. Remember, my thesis is they're the same. Religion and science are exactly the same thing. So what's different about them? What's different about religion and science that makes my statement that they are equivalent absurd? Why am I wrong? You know perfectly well that religion has nothing to do with science, correct? Not intrinsically. And the difference between religion and science is their foundation in logic. Religion has no logic. Religion is the absence of logic. That will be hotly argued by people who don't know my approach to science. I'm right, and you're going to be wrong. So don't disagree with me. Now is the time to listen. So if you have an objection, can it. Okay? So what is the difference between religion and science? Science is based on logic. Religion is based on emotion. And that is the only difference between the two. After that, they're exactly the same. They use the same methods. They use the same proof methodology. They're binary. They require explicit answers to rational questions. In religion, all the questions are based on emotion. In science, you are not allowed to ask a question that's based in any way on emotion. So the divisor is emotion. Now sin, which is the main characteristic of humans, is sin, which gets you dead. That's going to kill you. That's the premise of all religion. And I insist on that because it's a simplifying truth. Sometimes when you have a simplifying truth, there will be a footnote with the exceptions to your simplifying truth, which are conveniently called anomalies. And there is even an expression which one of my teachers violently took exception to and told us, don't ever fall into this trap, of using the phrase, the exception that proves the rule. That's actually a play on words. In older English, the exception that proves the rule means the exception that tests the rule. The exception that accepts the rule. That is, invalidates the rule. An exception is an invalidation in science. You can't have any exceptions in science. Now, on the religious side, everything is exceptions. Everything is exceptional, that is out of line, out of order, with respect to the natural, moral, ethical, ultimately emotion-based hierarchy of actions that humans take with their minds, and if they're truly sinful, with their bodies, in the form of assault, theft, murder, all kinds of transgressions against other human beings. These come from not any form of logic, but exclusively from emotion. Men are murderers. There is no denying that now. The only way you might take exception to the sinful nature of man is that perhaps you yourself are an exception. That you would never kill 6 million Jews. You would never stab an old lady to get the coins from her purse. You would never commit atrocities against your fellow humans, whether because they're helpless and can't get away from you, so you pin them down and execute your will upon them, even to the taking of that poor person's life, a child, a woman, a man who's righteous, you just want to kill, and you say that you have logic behind it because maybe your government told you, or some other mob of crazy people got you to kill because it made sense, boy. Well, you're a sinner, you are an evil fucker, and you're going to have to pay for that. Now, Western science denies that, because Western science denies retribution. As far as Western science knows, and really this even goes to Western religion, Hitler is a hero. Now, I don't think so. I don't think Hitler was a great man, the liberator of Europe, as so many have said. Well, certainly the Nazis did, didn't they? All of Germany went right along. There was just one little exception to the marvelous plan of the golden enlightened age, when Germany would be mastering Europe to take care of all the problems. Now you have a national socialism with very rich Germans, and now you're going to have very rich French, very rich everybody, once Germany has taken over Europe. But there was this just one little thing. You're going to have to kill millions of people to do it. Well, you can form logical systems that you can then tell people, oh, it makes perfect sense. Fascism, communism, dictatorship, secret societies, take over governments, just kill millions of people, kill hundreds of millions of people in Russia, tens of millions of people in Ukraine and throughout the Eastern European states that were handed over by Roosevelt, our wonderful president, who consigned basically tens of millions of innocent, liberated people from out of the heel of the Hitlerian Empire. They were liberated right into the hands of something worse, the fucking communists. So there's democracy at work, just couldn't finish the job. Couldn't get rid of the evil there in Europe. Just put something 1,000,000 times worse than Hitler. 1,000,000 times worse than Hitler. Or the communists. Absolutely. Everyone knows that in Europe. You're an American. You're not expected to know anything. So I'm here to talk to Americans to wake you up just a little bit to what's actually going on in reality. Well, there's a world scene that sure could stand some commentary from a wise man. We're not going to do that today, because instead we're going to talk about the basis of science, the absolute, only well-ordered basis of science. Apparently I'm the only man who teaches these kinds of things now. The way you're taught science in school, you end up a retard and you're worthless. You'll learn calculus, you'll learn trigonometry, you'll learn all your numbers, but you won't learn a fucking thing about geometry. You'll never understand relational logic. You'll be confused by everything in upper echelon cutting edge physics. You'll be frustrated. You'll be stupid. You'll be a liability. And you're going to end up a perverted fuckhead, just like everybody else in America. It's the flowering of Satanism. Welcome to the New Age. Science is corrupt. Everyone in America thinks that religion is corrupt. That's because you're blind. You're absolutely blind. You don't know what is going on anywhere. Everything is topsy-turvy, and you're going to end up being stupid. Does that mean you're going to burn in hell? That is on the different side of the fence where everything is emotional. You may want Hitler to burn in hell, but would you like your parents to burn in hell? Well, so burning in hell is kind of an antisocial sort of a comment. Well, that's why prophets such as Muhammad and Yeshua were just a little bit unpopular with the authorities, because they basically incited to riot. They are disturbers of the peace. They actually interfered with commerce. Yeshua knocked over the money changers' tables. Muhammad virtually did the same thing in the eyes of the Arab sheiks, who tried to destroy him before he could destroy their little mafia. Everybody has a mafia. It's some government, some money system that just controls commerce to feed your children, but nobody else's. Nobody works together. Everybody works at odds. You end up stealing other people's money. If you can't get enough money, you just invade your neighbor's house. You just get an army and take over some cities, just kill anybody who resists, and take what you want. And that's the story of humanity. The rise and fall of the Roman Empire is the rise and fall of another satanic realm. United States is no different. No country is different. They're all rapists. So that's the world that you're born into. So you think science is going to help you with that? No, it won't. You're wasting your time with science if you think it's going to give you any answers. And these scientists, including David Bohm, and there have been others who stand up against the system to some extent, and the system swats them like flies. Because the system never loses. And if there's a David Bohm who doesn't like the way quantum mechanics is going, that it's not truly scientific, it's not serving humanity, it's lost its way, and then David just comes up with an idea that the Dalai Lama very much liked, and Christian authorities very much liked. They were very curious about David Bohm's implicate order. And I have very much promoted David Bohm's science for that reason, because he's trying to get science back on course. Well, I'm sorry, David. That's why you were drummed out of the country, and you were hounded from country to country, not because you're a communist, which you weren't, but because you don't go along with the system. The system always wins. And if the system says we're from monkeys, you're fucking from monkeys, and that's the end of the story. It doesn't make any difference what any reputable scientists ever will say about that. You're from monkeys because the government says so. It can be sustained on a solid basis of atheism. As long as you're willing to accept atheism, then you can accept that you're a monkey. And then whatever you think after that, it doesn't make any difference, because you're completely lost. You don't know the difference between science and religion. And on the science side, Satan is working just as hard as Satan has been working against religion. He wants them both destroyed, and boy, has he been successful. As of today, religion is destroyed everywhere on earth except in Islam. Islam maintains the flame, and it always will. I am the prophet of Islam. I'm the leader of world Islam as of now. I am your spokesman. I am your guide. I have been commissioned by heaven to take the place of Muhammad. And your prophet is now going to kneel. Now, I have nothing whatsoever against Muhammad, peace be upon him forever, as has already been determined. I simply add my voice. Yes, Muhammad is the last of the Ismaili prophets. But that doesn't mean he's the last of the prophets. That would be ridiculous. Actually, that would be somewhat blasphemous, wouldn't it, you Islam scholars? Was Muhammad the last of the prophets? Absolutely not. I have no real clear idea, and couldn't, on how many prophets there have been since the time of Muhammad, but there has been at least one, me. I am the prophet of Islam now. I'm declaring myself to the Islam world. I am here to save you. Okay? So that's the way it's going to be. So when I speak about science to Islam, it's to save the culture that has been developed ever since the time of Adam, Hanok, Noah, and Ibrahim. Peace be upon them all. I'm not going to keep saying that because I don't need to. You might, because you like to practice rituals, don't you? Nothing wrong with rituals if it's guiding you to righteousness. Fake it until you make it, honey. There is absolutely nothing wrong with Islam, and never has been. From the time that the Prophet first opened his mouth to disclose his commission to the Ismaili tribes, the way of Islam has been the supreme guiding light of humanity, and by now it should have taken over humanity. But historical circumstances prevented from Islam from liberating Europe from the tyranny of the papacy. They almost got Vienna, but were thrown back about the time of Luther. They took Spain, but eventually that crumbled, and they retreated to North Africa, where the Islam people have been very happy ever since. Spain has not been so happy. There was a man named Franco, and you may recall Spain has undergone convulsions, and every other place in Europe has undergone horrific convulsions because Islam could not get in there to save them. Now Islam is being treated as if they were Nazis because they object to the presence of pseudo-Israeli forces on their homeland, which God gave them. Legitimately, according to Mosaic law, according to all the laws of the universe, the Israelis were kicked out, and what Hitler did to them is just another aspect of the Mosaic curse, but with the help of Zionist instigators, promulgators, very shady folk dealing in millions, billions, and trillions of dollars with the United States, because those kind of people, who want to engineer the reemergence of their ancient Sanhedrin system, they are just like Smersh. They're just like Spectre from a James Bond novel. They've taken over everything using the UN, which was invented by the communists, and Roosevelt just bent over and took it up the tailpipe and just said, yeah, it might have been Roosevelt and Stalin took it up the tailpipe. But both sides, according to Daniel's prophecy, both the Soviets and the Democrats, the democracy in America, and the commies in Moscow were both under the same heel. They're both under the full control of the Zionist Sanhedrin. And that's Blofeld. That's the Mr. Big. That's Dr. Evil. It's actually Satan. Now, what Satan is doing with so-called Israel is to try to get the false Messiah to appear. And that's called the working of miracles after Satan. The Jews are all ready, and they call themselves Jews. Don't kid yourself, children. There are no Jews in Europe. There never have been any Jews in Europe. By the time the Israelis, who were kicked out of Israel by their own God, got to Europe, including Ukraine, they were white. They were not Semitic. As soon as they got to wherever they went, after they were kicked out of Israel, they became whatever they became where they were according to evolution. Evolution. DNA does not determine human evolution. Where you live determines evolution. The people who went to Africa became Negroid. That means they have extremely black, extremely kinky hair, very dark skin. Very dark skin. Well, that has nothing to do with a new species. What, are they a different race? No, they're not a different race. All scientists know that. So why do scientists still pretend in white supremacy? Just because you're European, you're white, that means you get to invade Israel. Is that right? Well, that's what happened. The occupants of Israel now, besides the native Palestinian inhabitants who are being genocidally murdered right now, they're white Europeans. So what are they doing there? Well, write a book on it, darling. Write a book on it, dearie. You have no idea, and why should you? It's been going on for 3,000 years. These people hate each other. They hate each other. Now, let's straighten that out a little. Do the Ishmaeli tribes hate Christianity? No. Do they hate the Jews? No. Do they hate the nation of Israel? Wouldn't you? Since you're the harmed party by the Israelis, what the fuck are the Israelis doing there? Who gave them permission to take the Arab land? Who pushed that through? It was Satan. And everything is in the prophecy of Daniel, which if you're a Christian, of course, you followed your master's advice and learned the prophecy of Daniel. I haven't met more than 3 men out of thousands who have actually done that, but that is what a Christian, a true Christian, would do. You would do what your master said. Did you understand the prophecy of Daniel? Because the prophecy of Daniel was to ask the question to an angel, just like Muhammad did. Daniel was visited by an angel in exactly the same way Muhammad was visited by an angel. Nobody argues with that. Muhammad was actually visited by the same angel. Isn't that something? So Muhammad is in the prophetic transmission sequence for something that Yeshua said you have to know. If you're a Christian, you do know it. I haven't met any. And the ones that, well, I've met a couple that did know about the prophecy of Daniel, and a couple of those men helped me to understand it because I'm just as dense as any other American. So what I wanted to talk today about is the common feature between science and religion, which is what? We're seeking the truth in both cases. But in the case of religion, it's emotional. There is no logic involved at all. It's all about trust, faith, love, hope, peace, all the gifts of the Holy Spirit. This is what religion is involved with. Emotion. The fate of your soul, the condition of your heart, the disposition of your sin or your rewards or punishments to come. It's all about wrath. It's about blessings. It's about patience, mercy. He's the all-merciful one. Allah is merciful. They say that every single time they pray. So these people are serious. I am an Islam man. I am the prophet of Islam in order to save the righteous from the wrath to come. So that is not science. And it never will be. And there is no overlap. Whatever is emotional is not science. That includes anything about God, prophets, supernatural, life after death. Not science. Not science. Because it's not logic. It's not rational. Your You're making decisions on a completely different logic basis. And it's not logic. It's something else called morality. That you don't like to see people murdered. It makes you upset. You don't like the fact that people on the other side of the world even, 6 million Jews or 2 million Palestinians, the Armenians, the Bosnians, anybody who just gets massacred by evil forces, well, you can't rest easily in a world like that. You know why? Because of the image of God in you. As a naked ape, you couldn't give a fuck what happens to your fellow monkeys. But as a man made in the image of God, you care about every life. You care about all life. Because you're part of life, you're trying to merge with life so you can live. And then you see that your fellow men are completely against that. Whatever you love, your fellow humans want to destroy. And that's been true since Cain murdered Abel. It certainly has been true since the Israeli nation, as a unit, murdered the healer of the earth. And now they say they're back. Well, we've got a big fat liar on the stage now, don't we? It's called the United States of America. That is Satan. The Israeli arm is the arm of London. And you may think, God, London? Isn't that just that filthy, fucking dirty-ass city in that fog-enshrouded shit island of England? Yeah, but they moved to New York. The headquarters of the anti-godly, anti-human forces that are always here to destroy everything moved from Rome to London, moved from Jerusalem to Rome to London to New York. Now the headquarters is divided about equally between New York and Los Angeles, because in Los Angeles is Hollywood. And Hollywood is the brainwashing, propaganda arm of the current Nazi empire, which is America, is Nazi. Okay, so now you know where your country stands, where the world stands. It's going to hell. There's nothing that can stop it. You have a force that's determined to wipe out religion, but it's also determined to wipe out rational logic. Because in order for Satan to completely win, which he will, because God is going to let him win, you have to destroy the logic system of man along with the moral system. That has been accomplished. America is the perfect example of it. Just as England before us went homosexual, all the kings of England were homos, most of the artists were fairies, and they infected the culture of the Anglican world, just backwards morally, backwards religiously, unable to think straight at all, and they spawned America, which, since it's filthy wealthy, attracted the attention of course, the world controllers who came here from London. I don't know if you knew this or not. I'd like to ask you a question. Could you imagine a Jewish president of the United States, a Jew being president? You may say yes, you may say no. I'm just prompting your mind. Did you know that one of the prime ministers of England was a Jew? His name was Disraeli. How in the world did a Jew get to be Prime Minister of England when England at the time was anti-Semitic? How did a Jew get to be Prime Minister? I looked into that, and I actually could not pursue it far enough to gain a resolution, but it's just a remarkable fact. It would be like a Jew being in the position of Goebbels or Hess or Rommel, that Hitler had some Jewish generals, Jewish propaganda ministers, Jewish Nazis. Doesn't seem very likely, does it? Well, of course, it did not happen that way. Then how did a Jew get to the head of an anti-Semitic state. Germany was not alone in hating the Jews. All the countries of Europe hated the Jews, except the Islam countries, of which there have been, such as Greece and Spain. They were Islam at one time. Well, when the Islam people were there, the Jews had no problem. The Jews don't have any problem under Islam, but the Jews had a hell of a problem under false Christianity. All the countries of Europe hate Jews. To this day, it's not as prevalent because it's not as popular, because the Jews have a lot of power now. But back then they did not. They did, but you couldn't see it. There was a tremendous movement centered around Marx, Engels, Lenin, and it finally got transferred to Lenin and Trotsky, who was a Jew, one of the top three of the revolutionaries who overthrew Russia right at the end of World War I. You may have heard of that. Is the beginning of a 70-year reign of terror that killed over 100 million white people. The pogroms against the Jews, though, were real. And so Ukraine and Russia, as nations, were both guilty of malignant behavior against guests in their country who were the Jews. Not all of those Jews were pleasant people. And Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Nobel Prize winner in literature, wrote a 2-volume book called Gulag Archipelago, the Gulag Archipelago, about the Czechs, the tribe of Czechs, about 100 million of them in Russia, that existed shoulder to shoulder with the regular population, except they were prisoners. They were under forced labor to be exterminated in these giant prisons. That's all Russia was one giant prison. Roosevelt and Churchill threw to the wolves half of Europe, which has never recovered and never will. Europe was destroyed in the confrontation between communism and fascism, with the eventual intervention of the Americans, which sped things up. But the world that emerged from that is the world into which I was born just 9 years later, just 6 years after Israel was reborn, they say. And now we're trying to figure out science at the expense of religion. Religion has been crushed in the American culture. Christians are a laughingstock. The Islam people have always ridiculed the Christians, although lightheartedly, because they're not mean. They just know a retard when they see one. And all Christians that the Islam people have ever contacted have been retarded and morally degraded. And that's been true in Catholicism, it's been true in Protestantism. I'm 100% on the side of the Islam people. They respect Yeshua, but they do not respect Christianity. There's nothing to respect. I am here to change that. The Islam people are currently morbidly ignorant of the message of Yeshua. You were fed a line of shit ever since the time of the Crusades. You know that Christians are hypocrites. Why would I be any different? Because I'm Islam. Because I'm Islam. And that's 40 minutes to introduce my synthesis of science and religion, whereby I claim that the unifying principle between science and religion, even though one is pure emotion with no logic, and the other one is pure logic with no emotion, they're completely united on the cycles of nature. All religions are based exclusively and only, to be redundant, only on the cycles of nature. Okay? What are those? I think you know that there are the seasonal cycles. That's it. That's exactly it. What about the cycles in the heavens, the luminaries? Yes, those too. All the cycles. The cycles of the wind, the cycles of the rain, the cycles of cold and heat, day and night, summer and winter, the cycles of the birds flying north, the birds flying south, the fish coming to shore, the fish going away from the shore. Everything has a rhythm, a periodicity, a cycle, and that is non-mechanistic. So Western science is dead, because Western science never learned to adjust to cycles. There is no science for cycles. You only find the cyclic aspects of nature which define an entire dimension that is non-spatial and non-positional. It has to do with recurrent cycles that are built into creation. That is the ecology, which goes to the cosmos because the earth is powered by the sun. And the sun, children, is not part of the earth, but it sure feels like it in summer. Well, now we're entering the fall season, approaching winter. We have Halloween ahead. My favorite holiday of the year. I consider it sacred. Much more sacred than any other holiday ever named by any ecumenical council, whether it be Christmas or Easter. Those are shit. They have no reality, but Halloween does. Halloween is real. You can actually change your identity to that of a ghoul. You can be like Fester, or you could even be Lurch. Why, you could even be Wednesday Addams. For me, it would require a sex change, I suppose. But in the land of fantasy and ghoulish humor, which the Addams family is famous for, we've got a rollicking, frolicking, fun-filled holiday ahead, which will be climaxed with the new moon. Once a month there's a new moon. It slowly drifts, but basically for a very long time, it's once a month. It's just that it drifts from a day of the week to another day of the week every few weeks. That it'll be on a Friday, it may be on a Saturday the next month, it may be on a Sunday the next month. It generally advances about a day a month, because it's not exact, it's not quantized. So any day of the week called a Sabbath is a lie. An absolute lie. There's no such thing as a civil Sabbath of a weekday. That's a civil Sabbath that the Jews demanded, and then they changed God's own law to suit their own desires. So that's how we got the Saturday Sabbath, a complete fabrication. We got Sunday Sabbath because certain Protestants said that God changed his mind and moved it from Saturday to Sunday. I argued with that with the wrong people and got excommunicated by the Presbyterian Church of the USA, called the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. It's on their records, in their assembly. They excommunicated me in writing in absentia, so I could not defend myself. Because, of course, it's persecution. So what is the real Sabbath? Are the Islam people correct in Friday? Absolutely not. They just made that up, just like the Christians and the Jews made up their Sabbath. Do the Islam people know about the new moon Sabbath? No. No, because they haven't studied Israeli scripture very well to understand the Sabbaths that are revealed in the Israeli prophecies. I do understand them, and I'm going to teach them to Islam whether you like it or not. Because if you call yourself Islam and you don't listen to me, you're out. Thank you for tuning in. I have a peaceful, happy, progressive message for all men. Nobody's going to get hurt unless you deny what Yeshua and the prophet said, which is you're going to roast in eternal hellfire if you don't wake up. I'm here to help you. I think you see I'm beneficent, I'm altruistic. I'm not trying to get your money, I'm not trying to lie to you. But it does require you to react, and fuck, you are going to react to me, or you are in serious trouble. So, that's our synthesis of religion and science. It's on the cycles of nature, which teach us morality, because you're feeling the love of your Creator in having created the heavens and the earth just for you. Specifically just for the elect. I presume I am one of the elect, or I would not be talking with you. I would be some kind of pretender if I did not think I had a commission. I do. It's to bless you with the highest blessings available for a human at this hour. That's who I am, that's what I do. I'm the kindest, happiest, most well-adjusted man you'll ever know. But as far as sin goes, you're going to toe the line, You're going to follow what I say and nobody else, or you are going to be deceived. You're going to be taken in a snare. You're going to be lost, and you'll wish you had never been born. So you must listen to me, or else. No more patty cake. We're going to get the truth, if it takes hide, hair, and all. Keep tuned in. That's 45 minutes. Keep looking up. We're going to have a new moon within a week. May Allah be praised forever, and certainly He will be. I'm just expressing what the universe has said for me. Anytime you join in the praise of the Creator, you are doing what a human should be doing all the time. That's not possible because of the incursions of sin, which beset us on all sides and tempt us to miserable behavior. Your scientists are totally in cahoots with Satan now. You're not going to find anything out about the universe that you need to know from your shit-headed scientists. I'm the only reasonable man among the Western scientists. The rest of them are your sworn enemy, and they will chop your soul right from your heart, and you won't even know what happened, and you'll wake up in hell. So I pray that you're ready to do the easy way. Just bow in submission to your Creator who has loved you forever. Otherwise, He's going to be jealous, He's not going to like you, and you're going to be in pain. Avoid that pain by being happy now. That's the meaning of a holiday. That's a Sabbath. To rest. Rest with us. We're going to heaven. We shall do thee well. Trust me, I have a commission from heaven to help you. Keep looking up. We'll be right back. Thank you.